Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this February edition of Aquarium Live. My name's Nick, and I'm so happy to be your host tonight as we take you on a journey into this special exhibit. We're going to take a closer look at the open sea, show you some spaces behind the scenes, and walk you through a feeding like you've never seen of one of our most iconic, and I'm sure one of many of your favorite exhibits here at the aquarium. We have an exciting night planned, but before we go any further, it's my honor to introduce our executive director, Julie Packard.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you. Once again, our team has been working frantically on logistics behind the scenes. It's quite amazing, you know, what's engaged with getting people in 4 different locations talking about what we do here. But of course, I want to start by thanking all of you once again. Our donors and members make everything possible. You've helped us through the year. You're helping make possible the work of these fabulous folks that we'll hear from tonight and many others. And just a few words about tonight's topic, a little history and introduction about the Open Sea exhibit. As many of you probably know who have been with us from the start, the Open Sea exhibit was not even there when we opened on October 20th, 1984. But it was always in our dreams to continue telling the stories of the habitats of Monterey Bay. So the original aquarium, of course, kept us pretty near to the shoreline. But my father had purchased the old cannery next door to the aquarium site while the aquarium was still in construction. And, you know, few years after we opened and got our feet on the ground, we started talking about, okay, how can we expand the story? And we talked about a few different ideas, but the one that really engaged us and seemed most natural was the idea of talking about how the Monterey Bay connects to the open sea and to not only bring new animals to the public from that environment, which has rarely been exhibited in an aquarium environment, certainly nowhere here in the US, but also it enabled us to extend our story because, of course, Monterey Bay is part of the huge Pacific Ocean, and so many animals that travel through our bay or even spend part of their lives here, you know, spend time, you know, far and wide, many thousands of miles away. So for all those reasons, we fired up about it. But then, of course, you know, how to do it was the question. And of course, keeping animals in an exhibit that have lived their whole lives experiencing no hard surfaces whatsoever is a big challenge. And the water offshore, surprisingly, kind of doesn't quite sound logical, but the water offshore is warmer than our cool upwelling water here along the Pacific coast. So we had a lot of exacting water quality issues, and of course, most of all, to design that environment where these fish could navigate, fish and turtles could navigate and co-inhabit this exhibit where you know, it was really a first. Now, we worked closely with colleagues in Japan who were the only ones that had kept tunas, for example, on exhibit, as well as a lot of other cool open sea animals. And so we set about learning from them all we could. We traveled around to a lot of different exhibits, and we work with an amazing team of animal care folks, our own team, and then, you know, all kinds of wonderful specialized consultants to work on things like the cast acrylic panel, you know, how thick does it have to be? How can you make the biggest panel ever manufactured in an aquarium exhibit at the time, and have that pull off in a seamless way? How can you get the back wall to just disappear from view, but to last a long time? So it's been an amazing journey, and most of all, learning about the animals and the incredible field research that's launched from all of that. Early days of doing R&D about how to keep tunas and many of the other animals. So we're still learning every day. And today you're going to hear from some of the fantastic folks that take care of those animals and have a taste of what is involved with that exhibit that we all enjoy. It looks so easy when we're there looking in that gorgeous big view into the deep blue. but it turns out there's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes. So thanks so much for all your support. Thanks for being with us. Back to you, Nick.
Thanks so much, Julie. And you hit it on the nose. This exhibit is at the same time very unique in that it's showing an entire habitat, much like we do in the kelp forest exhibit or Monterey Bay habitats. An entire community of animals is existing together in the water, and an entire food chain is on display. And that's something that the founders set out and wanted to show in this exhibit. But it is also very common. This is one of the most common habitats on planet Earth, our blue planet that is mostly covered by ocean. Much of that ocean is this habitat right here, the open sea, where the seafloor doesn't really come into play. There's not a lot of algae or rocks for the animals to interact with. Truly pelagic or open water swimming animals on display here is what makes this unique, complex, and what makes it take an entire team of people to take care of it. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to take a look at what goes into a feeding of this exhibit, pull back the curtain, and show you some places that, even if you've seen this exhibit a million times, watch the feeding in person or on the webcam, I promise you haven't seen a feeding like we'll have tonight. So stay tuned. Now, as with previous Aquarium Live events, we're going to have two options for interacting tonight. We definitely want to hear from you. The first option is in the YouTube chat. So we have a team of staff that's monitoring the chat, going to be responding to your questions, comments, and reactions. So please keep those coming in the chat. We want to hear from you throughout the program. The second way, as we've done before, is with Mentimeter. So we're going to have some fun open sea history trivia tonight. And if you go to menti.com, we're going to put it up on the screen now, and enter the code for the quiz, which is 1831000. You'll be ready and set to go when we come to that point in the program to test our knowledge a bit. I know we have a lot of members who've been with us for many years, so you can show off for your kids and grandkids just how much you know about this exhibit and the animals inside. Again, thanks for joining us. We are super excited for what's ahead. Now, without further ado, we are going to take you to a special location behind the scenes where my friend April is standing by and ready to kick things off. April, how's it going?
Hello, everyone. Hi, members. Thank you, Nick. I would like to take a quick second and just introduce myself. My name is April, and I am so happy, members, to be here with you tonight. But more than that, I'm happy to be here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium because I come here by a very crooked road. I was a theater professional in New York City for a long time, many, many years. But I was also an educator all that time. And now here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, doing an event like this, I get to marry all those things and merge all of that part of me in this night tonight. And the reason I bring that up is because right now I am going to take you in here. And we're basically going to go behind the scenes of this exhibit. This exhibit is incredibly theatrical. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that really highlights what Julie was talking about. She was letting you know kind of how challenging it was. We're going to go behind the scenes and show you how they do that. But first, I want you to take note. This is an exclusive event tonight. Do not enter, husbandry staff only. If you weren't virtual right now, members, we would not be able to bring you in. You get to go somewhere where people never get to go. Come on. The first thing you're going to see is a big black curtain. I told you it was theatrical. And this curtain does the exact same thing a theater curtain does. It doesn't let light in because we need to protect the animals from any lights that are not prepared for. Then we're going to come in, but look around. Look at this incredible expanse, this 1.2 million gallon exhibit. Now, in the intro, Julie talked about how do you represent a habitat that is so vast, it covers the majority of the planet. Well, I'm going to show you a couple tricks of the trade, a couple exhibit design features. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to look at are these lights. Do you see these big, bright Canon lights here? And I'm going to go right there. They're big and bright. And what happens is the brightest lights are toward the front of the exhibit. And in fact, the front of the exhibit is where we are standing. Right here, we are above the window. And the window that you all see that is basically like a proscenium style stage is right there. And then as the lights go back, it gets darker and darker. And then it goes all the way until that really dark blue fiberglass edge. And that whole fiberglass edge basically has that illusion of no end, but it also helps the audience to see, helps the guests to see that's what it's like for these animals. There is nothing in their view for the vast majority of it. But that's not the only exhibit feature that I think is quite theatrical. I'm actually going to throw it back to Nick for him to show you one more thing that is pretty cool.
That's right, April. And it's pretty cool because it's something that, again, even those members have seen this exhibit a whole bunch of times, probably haven't seen this bubble curtain going behind the glass. So inside the water, there's a tube running along the bottom of the acrylic, and it is letting out some air and creating this curtain of bubbles. And normally while we're open, we only have this on when there are no guests in the building. What it does is it creates a visual barrier, visual cue for the animals, letting them know this is the window, and helps them swim safely and avoid that window while they're in the water. Since we haven't had guests in the building since March of 2020, this bubble curtain is pretty much on all the time. So it's neat to be able to see it running now. One cool thing we want to do is I actually have my friend Manny standing by, and Manny is going to radio John in control and let him know to turn that bubble curtain off so we have a better view for the feeding. Manny, we can go ahead and radio John. Keep your eyes on the window. That window, I want to point out, is just under 13 inches thick as we watch those bubbles rise instantaneously. Thanks, John in control down there, for switching that off. We have a much clearer view of those light beams, those big cannon lights April was showing. Now, the window behind me is not only massive, it's about 17 feet tall and 90 feet across. It is also about 13 inches thick. So this is an acrylic rod here that's about 13 inches thick. Gives you an idea of how thick it is. And if you think about 1.2 million gallons, the sheer weight of all of that water and that pressure pushing here against the window, it's why, as Julie mentioned, one of the biggest acrylic windows ever fabricated for an aquarium is this one right here behind me. So definitely some theatrical elements. One of the reasons this exhibit really has that wow factor. Now, April, I want to say, first time I ever came here, I was about 10, right about when the open sea wing opened. And this is what stuck with me. This is what made me end up wanting to work at an aquarium like I do today. I ended up majoring in anthropology in college, found out I loved talking to people, loved all the different cultures, and loved talking to people about the ocean. That is my journey here. So folks out there that are wondering how to make your way to the aquarium, a place like this or a job like this, you take many different paths. Stick with it and keep following along. All right, April, we're going to kick it back up to you and see what's going on above the water.
Well, Nick, now that the curtain is raised, I am ready to continue pulling behind the curtains so that you could see my colleague and friend, Teresa Neatfeld. She has her title is senior aquarist here, but she has an actually special cool title. Teresa, what is that title?
Yeah, hi everybody. My title actually for the open sea is called a czar. So I am the open sea czar. And what that actually really means is I help oversee the daily requirements for this exhibit. That includes observing the animals, doing feedings, as well as any medical exams or anything like that. But my main job is really help coordinating all the teams and all the people that are required to work on this exhibit to make it so successful.
So Teresa, I actually want to ask you a little bit more about all those teams and all that community. But first, I want to ask you a couple more things about you. How did you first come to care about doing a job like this?
Yeah, it's actually a good story. As a child, I remember visiting aquariums with my grandparents, and I fell in love with sharks. I'm actually originally from New Mexico, so growing up in the desert, loving sharks was kind of an odd thing. So I decided to go to undergrad school for marine biology. But I really wanted to figure out how I could work with sharks and share that love I have for those animals. And so that's why I decided to work at public aquariums.
And now here you work in this place where you take care of sharks, which is amazing, right? Now, one last question about what is it that you love most about this exhibit in particular? Why do you love being the czar of the open sea?
Well, this open sea exhibit is actually very unique. It is one of the few places in the world, and really the only place that has an exhibit of true pelagic animals in North America. These tunas and mahi that we have here actually live very far out into the open ocean, and most people don't get to see these animals. So being able to work on this unique exhibit and share with people what is actually out there is really cool, to really show off this unique environment.
And so this unique environment really comes at a, like, there's a lot of effort that goes into building this unique environment, right? It is a highly coordinated effort. And I believe these items here are part of that coordination. Can you tell us what we have here?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it takes a coordinated team effort. And we have a couple of our animal targets that we use here for the open sea. We have our pelagic ray target, a mola target, and a turtle target. And all of these are helping us to manage these animals in a safe and stress-free way.
So each one of these represents a separate team of people who are working with the target and training those animals. That's a lot, right? So can we take this one, for instance, and tell us a little bit more about how does this target work? And as we do, not all targets are always the same, even for that animal, right? So this one is for the mola. But sometimes it's a little ball, right? In the past. But tell me, how does this target for the mola, what's the process? How does it work?
Yeah, so currently our mola is using this target, but in the past they have used different shapes and different sizes. This one is target trained to go to this white diamond and is actually lowered by this rope by Michael off of our walkway. And what it is, it's like a visual dinner bell to the mola. We drop in this object and the mola would theoretically see this object and come over to receive its food. Now, it's a hard process to get them there. So in the beginning, it's a lot of, dedication and sort of a slow process to actually get them to associate this with food. But once they're there, it really does help us work with the animals.
And one of the biggest reasons is the specificity and uniqueness of the diet, right? So that's one of the big things. Okay, now this one is the one that allows you to truly look like a czar. Now you are a leader. All right, can you tell us a little bit about this process and what this target training process looks like?
Yeah, so this is a smaller version of our target training pole for our green sea turtles. And the green sea turtles can get very large, ours 400 pounds or more. And so in order for us to help them, to help us make sure that they are healthy and healthy, we've actually target trained to these little sort of domey shaped targets. And again, as with the other animals, it was a very slow, very precise method in which we visually started to associate them receiving food with this target near their face. So eventually this connection started. And the cool thing is we've actually been able to progress far enough in the turtle training. We can move this target around the exhibit and the turtles will follow it with us. Now this helps us move these turtles to wherever we might need them to go in the exhibit. And it's an excellent tool, especially when you want to move them outside. We have an outside holding pool in which they can get some sun and have a little turtle spa day. Or if they need some sort of a medical exam or your annual physical, we can use them to transfer these animals outside.
Now, I think some people might underestimate the green sea turtle. That animal looks very peaceful and calm, but is actually a very strong, powerful, heavy animal, right? So the idea that we can actually control their movements and keep them away from the big feeding is really pivotal to being able to pull off this feeding, right? And then I wonder if some folks might think, why do the turtles need a spa day? What's the deal about the spa day? Could you tell one more thing about why they even go out there?
Yeah, so it really is beneficial for their health to get some natural sunlight. So 2 to 3 times a week, they actually are what we call gated or moved outside. And so they can get some natural sunlight, which helps with their shell health and just overall well-being.
And what's really exciting is the innovation that these targets allowed us to care for this exhibit. It actually does more too. As Teresa said, it is allowing us to even up the game on how we're doing animal care. So the target training of turtles really led to a wonderful innovation in terms of taking care of those turtles. And we have a short video to show you about that.
Hi, my name's Mary and I help take care of the sea turtles here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We wanted to find a better way to manage the sea turtles during their physical exams, a way that would be less stressful and safer for both them and for us, and a way that gave Dr. Mike as much access to the animals as possible. We knew other facilities transported large sea turtles on a tractor tire, and since our turtles were already trained to come and follow a target, we built upon that. So we use the target to maneuver a turtle over 2 stacked car tires and then raise the hydraulic floor, which lifts both the tires and the turtle out of the water. The turtles coming to the tires and waiting while we lift the floor is all voluntary, so the whole procedure is safer and less stressful from start to finish.
Hello and welcome back. We have made another transformation and we are in a new location. We are now in the place. So all of that training is really standing on the foundation of positive reinforcement, all in service of feeding these animals. So Teresa, we have so much food here. Whoa, how much food do we have? And what is all of it?
Yeah, well, we have a representative of what we would call our large broadcast feed here for tonight, and it includes several different items. The first item we have is actually a gel diet. This includes all the vitamins and minerals that a fish might need, and these are for our pelagic tunas or mahi fish. So they get a little bit of a vitamin first.
Okay, and why do they need vitamins?
Well, they're just like us. Our food doesn't naturally provide everything we might need, so we can supplement it with vitamins and minerals.
Oh, and this is how many pounds of?
That is 35 pounds of California market squid. This is also for the mahi and the tuna, and we feed this whole to them.
Oh my goodness, that is a lot. And then we have one more bucket here.
Yeah, this is our final item for our larger fish. This is our sardines, in which we've actually chopped in half because they're a little large for our fish to eat. And it's about 25 pounds.
So all of the weights of this food, how do you know how much food to feed the animals?
Well, sometimes it's actually pretty simple, and we can use a combination of us observing the fish's behavior and see if they might want more food or need less food. And that's probably the simplest way of doing stuff. Like with our sardine school, that's our large sardine school in OS. But for things like the mahi and the tuna, it's much more complicated. We actually need to use a bit of science and figure out how many kilos of tuna there are in our exhibit. And then to be able to do that, we've used a lot of research that we've been doing for several years now. And we know for every centimeter of fish, we have an estimate of how much that fish weighs. And we know how many fish we have here, and we know how big they are. So we can estimate how many kilos of yellowfin tuna are in our exhibit. And this allows us to really figure out how many kcals or kilocals that fish needs to eat.
And of course, that is dynamic and constantly being reassessed because its animals are constantly growing.
Yep.
So
correct.
that is very complicated. Now, I have a very small aquarium at home, and I do this. Just do that every day. It's very different, right? This is quite complicated. There's one more thing I want to show. I can't carry both of those, but I will show you. There's pellets in here. You want to tell us about that? Oh, I'll do this.
There you go. Yeah, so this is for our sardine feed. Now they have a much smaller mouth, so they need smaller food items. So the first one is our pellet diet, and that's like your kibble that you would feed like your dog or your cat. It's just made for fish. They also get some Pacific krill, which are actually small like shrimp critters that they get as like sort of a dessert item.
All right. So we have so much to feed out, and I think we have a little bit more food prep to do. Is that right?
Yep, I got a little bit more fish to chop before we'd be ready to feed.
Now, Teresa, as you're chopping these fish, what I'm curious about is in the wild, no one's chopping their food up for them and preparing the fish in this way. Can you tell me a little bit more about why we chop them here?
Well, in the wild, Fishly can naturally select the fish size or fish item that they want to eat. But in here, we have to make sure we provide exactly what they need. So therefore, I have to chop the sardines.
And that's one of the things we talk a lot about in the aquarium is the size of the mouths are all very different mouth sizes within the same exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what else do we have to do?
Well, all of the food is prepped and we're ready on that part. But there's one last thing we have to do.
What is that?
We have to clean.
All right, members, we're going to take about 20 minutes and clean this whole kitchen. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that because that is not the best use of our time. But I want you to know that every aquarist I talk to here, when I say, what is the bulk of your job? And they say like 90-something% of my job is cleaning. So we're going to spare you that. But it looks like we are ready for the team to come on in and get their food. So as you know, we've said this is a whole community of fish in there, but it's also a community of animal care workers. This is Manny, and he's going to be feeding our pelagic rays today. Thank you, Manny. And we also have Michael. Woohoo, Michael. Michael has that mole at Target, and he's getting his food. Thank you, Michael. And we also have the turtle team here. So we've got Mary and Janelle are coming to get their food. Thank you so much. And me and Teresa, but I'm going to be near her, are going to be feeding all the rest of this food out, and we're going to take you every step of the way. Teresa, we have one last thing to do.
We do. We got to prep our place where we're going to feed.
All right. As we move over there, Nick, what do you think of all this so far?
I have two thoughts. One is when the open sea czar says clean, you clean. So it's a little hard for me to pause on that cleaning, but I guess that's okay for now. The other is, April, you mentioned scattering some food in your at-home aquarium, and you're right. This couldn't be more different than that. And what sticks with me is what Teresa says about the research that's gone into estimating the growth of the tuna and the mahi. Now, why that's important, when it comes to animals we're target feeding, like the turtles and the pelagic rays, it's possible to weigh those animals, and we can tailor their diet along with the growth as they live out their lives here in our exhibit. With the tuna and the mahi, once they go into the exhibit, we never touch them again. They are large, strong, fast open water swimmers. So these algorithms and complex growth curves have been created so that we can, like Teresa said, estimate the growth, and then using what we know about the protein and fat composition of the different food types, tailor the diets each and every week to the animal's needs. Really amazing and really awesome to be able to see that and hear that straight from Teresa. Back to you, April.
Nick, we are up here with the final step. I have to be over here so I'm clear. Teresa has the button. Teresa, tell us what you're doing.
So I'm actually lowering our catwalk that we have that is actually extends out into the exhibit here in the middle. And this catwalk is really useful because it allows us to get out over the water and get access to animals that we might not want near the wall.
Teresa, why doesn't it just stay down all the time then?
Oh yeah, we do raise our catwalk after we're done because we do have some fish species that are known jumpers, especially our mahi-mahi or the dolphin fish. They really like to jump. And so we want to make sure this is out of their way so they don't hit their heads.
And I can attest to that because while we've been preparing for this the last couple of weeks, we have seen mahi jumping out of the water, and it is so fun to watch. It looks like we are all set. The animal care team is going to get into their final positions. And now, members, it's your turn to do a little bit. Nick?
That's right. We're going to make you wait just a little bit, build the anticipation. It's time for that Mentimeter quiz. So now's your chance. If you haven't already gone to menti.com, that's menti.com, you can go there now. We still have time. You're going to enter the code 1831000 if you'd like to play again. Great time to show off what you know about this exhibit and its history. Let's go ahead and pull up the quiz now and we'll get started. All right, so for our first question, one more tip. When you select the answer that you think is correct, with some devices, you have to scroll down a little bit to hit submit. You do need to hit submit with each question for your answer to show up with the rest. All right, here we go. Question 1. When this exhibit opened in 1996, it wasn't called the Open Sea. It was called, was it the Endless Ocean exhibit, the Outer Bay exhibit, the Great Blue exhibit, or the Look Everybody Tuna exhibit?
No, I really like this question because there are members probably tuning in right now that were there for the grand opening of this exhibit, and they probably know exactly what it's called.
I think you're right, April. I am not surprised to see that lots of answers are coming in for the correct selection, which is the Outer Bay exhibit. Of course, this opened as part of the Outer Bay wing here in 1996. And I know many of our members, some have been with us since 1984 and a lot since 1996. So great job, everybody. The majority of us had the correct answer there. We're going to move on to question 2. What is a gill raker? Is it a job we assign to our newest animal care intern? Is it a body part that a sardine uses to eat? Is it a tool used by the aquarium's veterinarian, Dr. Mike? Or is it a James Bond movie?
All right, I don't know all my James Bond movies, but I'm pretty sure I have a hard time figuring out what that James Bond movie would be.
Me too, April, or who the villains would be in that movie. I think it would be a good one. Ooh, we're split here. We have a lot coming in for the sardine, a lot for the tool, a gill raker being a tool that's used by the aquarium's veterinarian, Dr. Mike. The correct answer is, drum roll, this is actually a body part used by sardines while they're eating. We're going to see this later on in the feeding in full effect. Sardines' gills are lined with tiny tooth-like structures, kind of like a comb. And while they're swimming through the water, they open that mouth and those tiny structures are able to grab onto food particles and plankton while they swim. Great job, everybody. Question 3. This exhibit holds around 1.2 million gallons of salt water. That water weighs as much as, is it 25 elephants, 25 fire trucks, 25 blue whales, or 25 very large sardines?
This makes me think anyone that has children at home that love dinosaurs, every single dinosaur seems to be constantly compared to how many elephants it weighs. So I'm wondering about elephants on this one.
Yeah, that's sort of a standard of measurement when it comes to kids' dinosaur books. How many elephants do you weigh? Of course, an elephant's about 10,000 pounds, 25 of those. Okay, looks like we have a lot of answers in. Overwhelming majority has said blue whales, and you all are correct. The water in the open sea exhibit weighs a little over 10 million pounds. A single blue whale weighs about 400,000 pounds. Multiply that by 25, you get around 10 million. And that is why the acrylic that we saw earlier has to be about 13 inches thick, holding back an immense amount of weight. Great job, everyone. Y'all are pros. Moving on to the next question. The ocean sunfish, or mola mola, is the ocean's largest bony fish, capable of growing to nearly 5,000 pounds. But how big are they when they hatch? Are they the size of a golf ball, the size of a basketball, the size of a grapefruit, or the size of a green pea?
We talked a little bit about the mola already, but one of the things we didn't bring up yet was how huge those molas can get. So this is a really great question.
April, you're right. 5,000 pounds is one of those impressive measurements. The other is that they can get to be about 14 feet tall. 14 feet tall from top fin to bottom fin. Truly incredible animals. But when they are hatched, they're only about the size of a green pea. That makes them the animal that has the greatest change or the greatest growth from when it's a larva to when it's a full-size adult. Now, another amazing thing about mola is when a female spawns or releases eggs, she releases about 300 million eggs at once, each of those about the size of a green pea, many of those becoming food for other planktivores or animals that like to eat those tiny things floating in the water. All right, moving on. Octopus aren't the only color changers at the aquarium. Which animal in this exhibit can often be seen changing colors, especially during feedings? Is it the dolphin fish? Is it the pelagic stingrays? Is it the yellowfin tuna? Or is it the green sea turtles?
Nick, I have to tell you, I actually saw one color changing colors just minutes ago, and it is so fun to watch an animal just change colors.
It is fun. It's amazing. One neat thing about this particular animal is scientists aren't exactly sure why it's able to, or why it changes colors, but they do notice it during times of excitement. So feeding, mating, and things like that. And we have, again, a very informed group of members here with everybody coming in, or the majority coming in with what is the correct answer of the dolphin fish. Don't worry if you didn't get it right. This was a tough one. Now, the dolphin fish does have chromatophores, those color changing cells, much like cephalopods. However, while the dolphin fish and other fish with chromatophores, they can change the distribution of pigment within their cells, but they can't change the actual shape of the cells. What makes those cephalopods, those octopus and squid, extra special and extra color changing masters is that they can actually change the shape of that shell, of that cell along with the pigment. All right, moving on. The open sea exhibit is bigger than all of our other exhibits combined. Which exhibit is the second largest? Is it the Monterey Bay habitats? Is it the sea otter exhibit? Is it the kelp forest? Or is it the sea nettles?
Now, there was quite a little debate about this one, wasn't there, Nick? We had to kind of go back and forth and get a little bit of further research to answer this one.
You're absolutely right. My first inclination was wrong. I had the wrong answer on this one until I looked into it and actually talked to John in control, and he let me know the correct answer. And again, I'm not surprised the members had me beat on this one. Our second largest exhibit is indeed the kelp forest. Now, again, the open sea, 1.2 million gallons. The kelp forest comes in at 342,000 gallons. So it would take about 3 kelp forests to equal an open sea. Monterey Bay habitats, though, for those 46, 47 who guessed Monterey Bay habitats, 312,000. So almost the same as kelp forest. And in fact, kelp forest is twice as tall as Monterey Bay habitats, but half as wide, making those two have pretty much the same volume. Great job, everybody. Now, finally, this one's less of a question and more of a poll. So the open sea, it's one of our most iconic exhibits. Which animal in the open sea is your favorite to watch? No correct answer. You can select one animal, 2, 3. You could rank all 7. Totally up to you. We have some answers coming in.
Nick, this one is always hard for me because it depends on the day. It depends on my mood, but I'll tell you one thing in this exhibit that almost always gives me a wonderful sense of calm, and it's those sardines when they are acting in that almost ballet movement. It just helps me ground myself.
I agree with you, April. It also changes a lot for me. It looks like sea turtle, was just beaten out by mola. I'm sure it's going to change position a few times here, but it looks like sea turtle is up there near the top. For me, it has to be the sardines as well. Because like we said, this exhibit is incredibly unique and showing those open water pelagic animals. One of the most unique aspects of it is that school of around 10,000 sardines. You're hard pressed to find that at any other aquarium. And it's one of the things that stuck with me. It's moving art. When you see that sardine school moving around, moving in synchronicity, it's really, really amazing. So we're going to go ahead and take down the quiz. Thanks everybody for playing. Again, impressed but not surprised by the knowledge of all of our members who've been with us for so many years. Thanks everyone for playing our Mentimeter quiz. Now, with that, the wait is over. I think the fish and the animals in the water might stage a mutiny if we don't get this thing going soon. April, how's it looking above the water?
Oh my goodness, Nick, you couldn't be more right about this. The pelagic rays seem to see Manny here. He hasn't even dropped the target yet, and they've been coming over, and I think they are ready. Manny, let's get this started. Everyone ready? Here we go. Manny is going to drop that target in, and look, the pelagic rays are coming right to it. It's their visual dinner bell. And we're going to stay here for just a moment as they were all waiting for their food. And now you can see them just below the surface. And here comes one. And what you're going to look for is when they come up to the surface, you're going to see that they're actually coming up belly side first. Let's see if we can get an angle here. There you have it. They turn upside down and they fold their body around that food, pushing it against the top of the surface of the water. Let's see if anyone else is coming up. Now, they're not the only ones who need to eat. Manny is going to continue to feed these animals, but I am going to move over to Michael where he's going to target the mola. But Nick, what do you see?
It's amazing seeing those rays upside down like that, and it highlights one of their adaptations for life in the open sea. You've seen any animal in the ray family before. They have that depressed or flattened body shape, perfectly adapted and evolved for life on the seafloor. The pelagic ray, pelagic meaning open water swimming, is a bit of an anomaly in the ray family and makes its living out in the open sea. So it's actually been observed in the wild, flipping over, using those big pectoral fins to herd fish towards the surface. So our aquarists and our animal care staff have sort of used that behavior in the way that they target feed the pelagic ray. They're often called the Monterey fish taco, well, here at the aquarium, when they do that, because of the way they curl those little pectoral fins in. They look a bit like a little cute taco. Love seeing that, and really an awesome view. April, how are we doing at the mola station?
Well, here we are. So the next thing that happens is Michael is here and he has dropped the mola target. You all know that mola target, now that white diamond. And Michael has dropped that target because that mola, can you see her? She's down there and she hasn't, I don't know if it's a male or a female, but I'm going to say she hasn't seen her target yet, but it might take her a couple minutes to come over to this target. But what is so unique about this is that we really need her to get to her target before we can feed the rest. So Michael is going to continue to invite her over, but I'm going to see, Nick, can you even see this target from your view?
You know, we'll have to go to the wide shot, April. I think I can see it in my view. And then, yeah, if you look towards the back of that wide shot view, everybody, just right of center in that right sunbeam, about halfway down, or light beam, you can make out the mola target being raised and lowered a little bit. Now, it is important that the mola stations as much as possible during the big feeding, because it does have a very specialized diet. So getting it to the side of the exhibit, feeding it that special gelatin sausage instead of the other foods that make up what we call the big broadcast is best for the mola. Now, it doesn't station every single time, but we'll see if it does here at the buzzer. Now, April, I know we have a little bit more prep to go. We're getting some awesome shots of the open sea, those big tuna swimming through those light beams there. And if anybody's wondering if they anticipate their feeding, I think they absolutely do. Most of the time, this would happen at 11 o'clock. Any fans of our webcam know that this exhibit is fed every day at 11. But the fish certainly notice when there are folks up above the water. I'm sure the tuna and dolphin fish took note of the other animals being target fed. They know the program. Yeah, April, back to you.
You are absolutely right, Nick. These fish are ready. So I'm up here with Teresa. Teresa, tell us our first course.
Well, we're going to start first with our gel cubes. If you remember, those are those vitamins and minerals. And if you think about it, we always want to feed our vitamins first when the fish are the most hungriest. Because just like us, sometimes we don't want to take our vitamins.
Now, what is so exciting is from up here, I can see the mahi swimming all around. Can you see them darting? And I'm going to see if I can get you here. But those mahi are spectacular. And I even see some changing colors. Nick, what do you see?
What I see is incredible from down here. The scale of that wide view, the speed of the fish doesn't come across quite as well as it does from what I was seeing in the background of your shot, April. I saw one of those mahi or dolphin fish darting at the surface. They're incredibly fast. You can see them a bit behind me here. Now this, to juxtapose it to those target feedings, this is the opposite. This is a broadcast feed. It is a bit like sprinkling the food in your home aquarium. Those animals that are closest to the surface or fastest are going to be on the scene first. Really, when those fast open water swimmers show off their adaptations and their speed for those adaptations for life in the open sea. Now, it looks like we've moved on to course 2, April.
Yeah, Nick, we are up here. Teresa, what are you throwing out now?
So I'm throwing out our 35 pounds of California market squid. So this is kind of like the vegetables of the diet. So first comes your vitamin, now they get their vegetables.
And I am seeing so much splashing on the surface. You can see the animals going. And another thing is our mola did target. So while they're being fed, we do have the mola right here, was just up here with Michael, and Michael is feeding her. She came up just as she's supposed to, but she's tucking away for a little bit and might come back for a bite in a minute.
Now, what I think is cool, April, is it's important that, or we try to hold the mola at the target during the squid part of the feeding specifically. He or she will be released from that target after the squid are finished, because the mola out in the wild would eat mainly gelatinous creatures. Think jellies and salps, soft-bodied animals. Doesn't really have the teeth or the dentition to go after what we're going to be feeding next, being the chopped up bait fish with bones and scales. So these squid, though, the mola would happily partake, would happily gobble up some of these California market squid. Now, I do want to point out, April, that the California market squid, if everyone can picture its 8 arms and 2 tentacles and having a lot of water content in its body, causes it to sink rather slowly. So the animal that's often featured or highlighted most during this part of the feeding are the mahi-mahi or the dolphin fish. Now, if you look up towards the surface, some of them are changing colors, flashing that brilliant golden color. Now, the mahi-mahi inhabits out in the ocean the epipelagic zone. So the tuna and the mahi are both pelagic fish living in the open sea. However, this is a 3-dimensional space. Imagine they can go left, right, north, south, but they can also go deep or up near the surface, and certain animals are adapted to different niches in those different places. Epipelagic zone is up near the surface, and that's where the mahi likes to hang out and often gets a lot of the squid during this part of the feeding. We're seeing the mola still is at its target. Is that right, April?
Yeah, the mola is still at the target, and the mola is going to stay on its target until the squid is all fed out, which is really, really close. And then as soon as it looks like the squid is all out, which means the mola can go off its target. And Teresa, we're ready to throw the sardines. Now, this is what they've all been waiting for. Here we go.
Yep, this is our dessert, if you want to think about it. This is what they've all been waiting for to get to.
And if the mahi-mahi or the dolphin fish are highlighted during that squid course of the feeding, it really becomes the yellowfin tuna show during this chopped up bait fish part. We can see them, those strong, large animals really taking center stage. Now, the tuna are one that I think are often overlooked or underestimated as well, April. People might be most familiar with tuna in a can being very stackable, but the yellowfin tuna is a highly adapted ocean predator. And one of the things that's most interesting, I think, about it is that they actually have regional endothermy. They're endotherms, which is a fancy term for being sort of warm-blooded. So we know that mammals are warm-blooded and we can control our body temperature. So our core temperature is not dictated by the air temperature around us. Most fish are cold-blooded. So their bodies are the same temperature as the surrounding water. Those yellowfin tuna have the unique ability amongst fish to elevate their muscle temperature up to 20 degrees higher than the water they're swimming in. Now think about the opportunities that affords a fish like the yellowfin tuna. Again, that 3-dimensional world they're living in where it's cold down deep. It's cold at higher and lower latitudes. They're able to access foods and swim to parts of the ocean that other fish might be specially adapted to, but not able to move between. So other regional endothermic fish include the great white shark. So some of the really large, really strong, powerful open water swimming fish have this ability, but it is really uncommon amongst fish.
Hey, Nick,
Now,
Teresa
yes.
and I are done with the big feed, and we're going to we're going to safely walk to the other side to feed the sardines.
Fantastic. So while they're going, I think we still have a few bits of sardine in the water, and I want to continue to highlight the yellowfin tuna. The sardines are also on the scene, so keep an eye on them. They know that they're part of the feeding. It's coming up soon. The yellowfin tuna, every part of its body is built for endurance and strength, fast swimming and long swimming. So their body shape is what we call fusiform. Think of it as a football shape. So that dolphin fish is laterally compressed. It's not fusiform. However, that football-shaped yellowfin tuna perfectly evolved and adapted to cut through the water in a hydrodynamic way with very little drag. They also have special pectoral fins with specialized grooves in the side of their body. So when those pectoral fins lay flat, they actually lay into grooves, making them perfectly flush with the side of their body, again, reducing drag. Now they have a lunate tail fin shaped like a crescent moon, which is powered by warm muscles. Again, that regional endothermy, allowing them to be true, amazing ocean athletes. Now I see, Teresa, are you ready for the feeding for that big group of fish that I see very excited in the water?
Yep, we're going to start with their pellet diet, and we're going to try and entice them to come up to the surface.
Now, Teresa, I like how you said entice them, because they don't I'd say they most every feeding, they rise up and find their food. It looks like they're definitely going to today. And this is that ballet, that silver tornado, the thing that I think takes this exhibit and elevates it to an entirely different level. 10,000 individual fish swimming together. This first course being those fish pellets. Now we talked about the gill rakers. Each of those sardines right now has its mouth open wide, swimming through the water, extracting oxygen with their gills from the water, while at the same time, those small gill rakers pulling those pellets, holding on to them so they can then sort of agitate their gills and swallow those pellets down. Pretty
And
awesome.
Go ahead.
Up
here, Nick, I was just going to say, you could see the water splashing as they're getting the pellets right off the surface of the water, and they are splattering in that swirl.
Absolutely incredible. Now we saw a dolphin fish swim right under the school. That would be a predator of a sardine out in the wild. And we get the question a lot. We have a whole food chain in the water. How often does one animal eat another animal? And the answer is that it's rare. We like to say that there's low predation, while maybe not no predation that happens in the water. We target each and every animal's specialized diet, and by doing that, they're less likely to go after the school of sardines. However, those sardines are extremely well equipped for avoiding predators. A sardine in the wild has once been shown to live over 25 years. Pretty impressive for a fish that's no longer than about 12 inches. And I see, Teresa, that you might be ready for the next course for the sardines.
Yep, so this is their second course, and this is made up of that Pacific krill. And we're going to kind of spread it out up here at the surface of the water to ensure that each sardine has a chance to get some krill.
So, Teresa, I noticed that you've been throwing it, small parts at a time. You just did a bucket at a time with the pellets, and now you're doing a handful at a time with the krill. Why not just dump the whole thing in?
Well, I mean, this is a large school of sardines. There's, 10,000 plus sardines in here. And if I were to just dump this bucket over the edge, it would be a really big blob of fish, and there'd be about 25 happy sardines, and then the rest wouldn't be getting any food. So that's why I spread it out and kind of make a wide cloud so more sardines have a chance to get some of the food.
Well, that seems like a really good idea then. And I love watching these mahi-mahi dart through it. I bet it makes the sardines just part ways when they do that. Is that what's happening down there for you, Nick?
It is, yeah. The sardines are using those neurocysts, special sense organs in their heads. When a neighboring fish in the school moves, they can sense that water motion, even if they don't see the same predator, and move basically at the same time. So again, one of those awesome adaptations for life in the open sea, where a lot of animals have you on the menu. Now, April, as we watch the krill being fed, it reminds me, krill are a plankton. There's lots of krill in the ocean, and plankton in general makes up a good deal of the productivity and the amount of food that's available in the ocean. However, a lot of the big predators like dolphin fish, tuna, they can't eat the plankton. They need larger foods, animals that are higher up on that trophic chain, higher up on that food chain. So what the sardine does is it fills a very important role as a trophic bridge. It's eating a lot of that plankton and those krill and other small forms of life in the ocean. And then those bigger predators are eating the sardines, and that energy is allowed to pass up or able to pass up, and keeping all of those food chains and food webs in balance. Now that balance, as many of you know who live here in Monterey or near the area, know the history of Cannery Row, that balance was challenged early in the 20th century when many sardine canneries here on Cannery Row overexploited sardines in the bay to the point that the population crashed. So the history of fishing, both crash and then rebound, is rich here in this area. And many of those lessons led to some conservation programs that we have here at the aquarium. So a bit later, we're going to give you some concrete ways that we can contribute to protecting these places out in the wild. But first, I want to send it back up to Teresa.
So Nick, it looks like we are all done up here. Anything left, Teresa?
Nope, the feed is now done. I got some more buckets to clean later on. But yeah, this is what our major broadcast feed entails.
Congratulations, everybody. That is all the steps of an open sea feed. Back to you, Nick.
Thanks, April and Teresa. Huge thanks to the Open Sea team above the water. So as I mentioned, these places, the open sea, being one of the most common habitats on planet Earth, often seem far from us and disconnected. But we are very connected to these places, and it comes down to what we eat, and especially if we're eating seafood. Now, the aquarium has been a global leader in sustainable fishery research for over 20 years, and that's culminated with the creation of our Seafood Watch program that I know many of you are familiar with. Now, for those of you who don't know about Seafood Watch, it's basically a tool. And if you're in a grocery store or at a restaurant and you're looking at a specific type of seafood, you plug it into the tool, and if it comes up as green, that means go. It means we've done the research to show that that animal was sustainably harvested and not harming the ocean with the way it's taken for consumption. If it shows up as yellow, that means to slow down on that choice. It's a good alternative if you can't find a green listed option. But if it shows up as red, that means we've done the science to show that the way that that species of seafood was harvested from the ocean
right here
is harming those populations or the habitats in the wild. So to please avoid. That tool still exists, but what's new from Seafood Watch is a brand new website. So we're going to put it up on the screen now, seafoodwatch.org. And I actually want to point out one feature of the new website, and that is one that highlights the global nature of our work with fisheries around the world. So if you go to the website and check out our stories, you can learn about stories where we're working with governments and NGOs and fisher people on the ground to make their lives better and make their products more sustainable and more healthy. Take, for example, the story of Rolando Ibarra. Rolando Ibarra is one of our senior aquaculture research scientists, and he works with us down in Chile. Now, Chile is the globe's second biggest exporter of salmon, and the United States is the second biggest consumer of salmon behind the European Union. And we've been working with Chile alongside Rolando Ibarra. Their salmon farms have been plagued by problems around disease and high antibiotic use. Now, through our work with Seafood Watch and Rolando, we have reached agreements with fisheries down in Chile to set goals that by 2025, they'll cut their antibiotic and chemical use in half, with huge global implications for the salmon industry. And salmon is one of the top most eaten seafoods here in the US. So the implications of that are really huge. So if you're wondering how to pitch in, how to protect places like this out in the wild, it's through our Seafood Watch program is a really great way. Now, April, I know things are winding down up there above the water. We had an awesome view at an open sea feed, and we mentioned early on that we're going to have a chance to take some questions from the audience. I bet a lot of questions have been rolling in. What questions are you seeing up there?
Well, hello. So we'll get the questions right into Stephanie. But I have one right up at the top, and that's, Teresa, we didn't really talk about the sharks, and those are your favorites in the first place. Now, how come the sharks weren't part of this feeding tonight?
Well, we do have some scallop hammerheads on exhibit, but they're also target fed, but they're fed at a different time from the broadcast. And that kind of helps them keep them separate from some of our fast moving tunas so they can stay safe and out of the way of the fray of the feeding you guys just saw.
Which is important.
Very important.
Can you tell me your top favorite thing about scallop hammerhead sharks?
In the wild, they are actually really known to school in hundreds of animals. If you can imagine, like a 12-foot hammerhead shark schooling with hundreds of its other fellow sharks, it is an impressive sight to see. And for us to be able to show at least a couple representatives of that species here, it is truly unique.
And now I'm going to invite Paul, if you are available. If there's some questions that have come in through the chat that you would like to read out to us, I'd like to invite you to do that, which is a little bit on the spot, Paul, but we'll see if that works.
Hey, April, I see a question here. I'm hearing from Paul. What is Teresa's favorite shark or fish that you've ever worked with?
Ooh, that is a very tough question. I have a lot of favorites, but deep down inside, my favorite probably fish and shark are tiger sharks. They are so beautiful and very unique sharks. I truly love those guys.
Incredible. Teresa, have you ever worked with a tiger shark anywhere or seen one in the wild?
Yeah, actually at my very first aquarium many, many years ago, we actually had an 8-foot tiger shark and her name was Cuddles.
That's perfect. I love that. We have another question coming in from Paul. What happens when the mola gets too large?
Oh, this is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, so our mola or our sunfish, we tend to get them on exhibit when they're much smaller. We call them platter size. So you think of a large serving platter. And through our work with that very specific diet that they get, we've been able to monitor how much they grow. But there is a limit. They cannot live their entire life cycle in our exhibit because, as you've said before, they can get 14 feet tall and upwards of 5,000 pounds. So before they get too big, we actually release them back out into the wild so they can live the rest of their life and produce more molas.
That's incredible. It'd be hard to move a 5,000 pound mola, I imagine. Now, I think we have time for maybe one more question. And what I'm seeing is, how does the water, all 1.2 million gallons of water, how does it stay clean? How do we take care of the water quality?
Well, what you can't really see from the top here, because all you can see is this lovely pool look, is all of the filtration that we have down in our basement and even located in the backup here. There's bunches of different kind of filters. Some take out particulates, some help with water clarity. And this is running 24/7, and it's actually monitored by our control department 24/7. And that helps us make sure that you guys can see inside our big open sea exhibit.
Now, I think we are ready. I'm going to sneak right over here because there is actually one final thing that happens here at the open sea feeding. And we showed you a lot about the turtles and we talked about the turtles and everything that it takes to bring them. But we haven't been able to show you any of the actual turtles today because they were out at the spa. So the last thing that happens is our team is standing by and bringing those turtles in so that we can bring them back to where they need to be. You'll see Manny standing there with the net again. And Manny was the one feeding our pelagic rays. And then we also have Janelle and we have Mary bringing our turtles back in. And in fact, I'm going to see if we can catch them out here as well. So this is what it looks like out here, folks. This is our turtle spot. And you can see that we've got, our team has them coming straight to the target. And I'm even going to zoom in. This is exactly what we talked about earlier. This is Janelle, and she's got one of our green sea turtles in. And then there's a fence that raises out here. And I'm going to see if I can show you. This gate raises up And after it goes up, we're able to walk those targets, those turtles, following those targets back into the open sea.
The turtles don't want the show to end, April. They're just going to hang out.
They don't. They don't. Well, we might go ahead and let you just say goodnight to the turtles here as they're about to go back to their home. Nick.
Thanks so much, April. Thanks, you guys.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, first of all, thanks again to the big team above the water, Manny and Teresa and April and everyone on the Open Sea team that made that feeding happen. It was awesome for me. I worked here for about a year before I got to even go above the water and see some of the things that we've been able to share with hundreds of you tonight. So really, really special, and definitely one of the silver linings of being closed is being able to explore platforms like this and bring our awesome members to places that maybe they've never seen before. Now, we talked about the community of animals that we show here in the open sea and in all of our exhibits, and the community of people that it takes to take care of them. But none of that work would be possible without the community of members, without each and every one of you out there. Now, especially while we've been closed. It's still our mission to inspire conservation of the ocean. You might imagine how hard that is when we don't have guests coming through the doors. The only reason we're able to still do that is because folks like you, still members, still engaging, still supporting our work, whether it's in Seafood Watch, our Sea Otter Rescue Program, or any of the research and science programs we have, be it with white sharks or other animals. None of that is possible without our members. Huge, huge thanks on behalf of all of the staff and volunteers here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We couldn't do any of this without you, and we're all counting down the day until we can safely welcome you all back into the aquarium in person. Thanks for tuning in tonight, everybody. We hope you enjoyed your behind the scenes peek at the Open Sea exhibit. Again, my name's Nick, and we'll see you next month for Aquarium Live. Have a great night, everybody.